Okay. All right, everybody, welcome. All right, so what we're going to do today is we're going to start from where we left off in our last Mishnah. And we're going to talk about this Mishnah, Klal Gadol Amru Shabbos. There's this great rule that they said about Shabbos. All right, so what we're going to look at today is this is going to be our starting point, but today we're not looking at the halakhic aspect of Shabbos. We're going to look at the spiritual essence of Shabbos. We're going to really investigate what is the spiritual essence of this concept of Iker Shabbos, the essence of Shabbos. All right, so we're going to start here. This is going to be our jumping off point because this is what we were learning. But what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the Maisa Breshis. We're going to take a look at the creation. So that's the first place we're going to go. And the creation, Shabbos is the last thing created. So we're going to briefly look at a very complicated topic. The two great secrets of the Torah are the Maisa Breshis, of how Hashem created everything, created the earth and the universe and everything in it. And what's such a great secret about it is, so then you may say, because if you know the Gemara in Chagiga, it says you can't teach the Maisa Breshis or the Maisa Merkava to more than one student. So how are we going to learn about it today? Okay, or how do we learn about it every year? After Simchas Torah or Shmini Atzeres, when we start the Torah again, we do Parsha Breshis. So how do we learn about it? Okay, so the two great secrets of Maisa Breshis and then Maisa Merkava. So Maisa Breshis is how Hashem created everything, and Maisa Merkava is Hashem's throne, like the Kisei Kavod, the throne of glory, and that's how Hashem runs all the world. Now, you can learn about it. The great secret of Maisa Breshis is that it's not only, the secret is this, it's not only teaching us, so we can look at it, a theoretical look, at just how did Hashem create the world. The secret about it is, and this is what you can't teach to more than one student who could learn on his own, is that it actually teaches you how to do it yourself. So I'm going to give you an example. So for instance, Betzalel, when he made the Kalim, for the Mishkan, when he made, let's say, like the menorah and the Shulchan, where the Lechem and Pani, where the 12 breads went onto, he actually used this system, Hashem's system, of using like Hashem's names and a combination of the letters of the Hebrew alphabet, of the Lashon HaKodesh, the holy language, and you can actually create things. That's the secret. That's what you can't teach publicly. But just seeing from a theoretical standpoint, or just a Torah standpoint of how Hashem did it, we can learn that. Right? What we're not going to learn today is the secret of how you actually do it, because honestly, I don't know. I don't know how you do it. You know?
When you say Ma'aseh Bereshit, the creation of the world,
yeah.
So Ma'aseh Merkava is creation of what?
Maisa Merkava is the action of the Merkava, the action of the chariot, meaning how Hashem runs the world from his Kisei Kavod. It's a little bit of one of the famous parts of the Torah that's dealing with it a little bit is when Abraham is asking Hashem, like when Hashem wants to destroy Sodom and the 4 other cities in that region, Abraham starts questioning him a little bit, like, well, what if there's 50 Siddiqim? What if there's 50 righteous people? And Abraham's starting to question him on like how Hashem's running the world. Another famous aspect of it, one of the most famous aspects, one of the most important parts of it, is the vision of Yechezkel. It's Ezekiel, and it's the very first chapter, of his prophecy, and that's the vision of the Merkava. It's the vision of all the Malachim there, and we're going to talk about the Malachim today, the 10 different types of angels and when they were created. We got a lot to do. It may take over 2 days, so we'll see how it goes. So that's a part of it. Another very famous part is when when Moses asked Hashem, says, "Can I see your face?" And Moshe's real question there is, Moshe wanted to know the most famous question, that everyone has in the world, everyone has in life. Why do sometimes good things happen to bad people, and then why do bad things sometimes happen to good people? And that's the greatest philosophical question of life. And the whole Sefer Eov, the whole book of Job, is really dealing with Moshe's question. That, in a sense, is like the answer that Moshe is asking Hashem. And it's all related to how are you running the world? How are you running the world? Okay, so that's the Maisa Breshis and the Maisa Merkava. And then what we're going to see is, so the essence of Shabbos is that Shabbos is the completion of the creation. We're going to see that Shabbos is the last thing created. So we're going to get a sense of what the creation was, and then we're going to see that Shabbos is the end of it, and then we're going to start taking a deeper look at what is Shabbos, what actually is Shabbos, what's the essence of Shabbos. And there's this rule, there's this idea that when you see a word in the Torah, and the very first time that word appears, that's the essence of that word. So we're going to see, we're going to take a look at the very first time Shabbos, is mentioned, right? And that's going to give us an idea of going to be the essence of Shabbos. Right? So let's start real quickly from where we left off. So where we left off is, we had a Mishnah, it's in Gemara, it's in the Masechet Shabbos, right? The Talmud on Shabbos, it's Samek Zayin Amud Beis, so it's 67b. And we saw this interesting Mishnah, and the Mishnah starts with, there's a Klal Gadol Amru Shabbos. There's a great rule that they said about Shabbos. Now, Rebbe Akiva has it's the Klal Gadol on the whole Torah. What's the great rule on the whole Torah? And Rebbe Akiva has the very famous quote in the Gemara, and he says the Klal Gadol of the whole Torah is v'achavta l're'echa kamocha. Love, the mitzvah of love your friend like yourself. And Rebbe Akiva says that's the essence of the whole Torah. So here too, now we have a Klal Gadol. So what's the great rule of all of Shabbos? What's the most important thing in Shabbos? And we're gonna investigate it deeper today, not from just a halakhic standpoint, but from a spiritual standpoint, a hashkafic standpoint, right? We're gonna look deeper into what is the Iker. So it says this incredible comment. It says in the Mishnah, Kol hashocheya Iker Shabbos. Everyone that forgets the essence of Shabbos. Now, it seems, I don't know how everybody reacted when they first learned it, but it seems crazy, right? It seems, this is the very last part of creation. This is the completion of all the creation. So Shabbos has some extremely important role in all the creation. It completes it. And we're going to see that. We're going to talk about that soon. And the idea of how could anyone ever forget the essence of Shabbos? But the crazy thing is, we live in times right now, as crazy as it is, where maybe the majority of the Jewish people don't know the essence of Shabbos. They don't even know Shabbos. The majority, we live in these crazy times where the majority of Jewish people are not even celebrating Shabbos, have never been raised on Shabbos, right? And don't know it. And we see this whole concept starting to be introduced in this Mishnah and in the Gemara, that there's a concept of a tinok shel nishba, so a little Jewish child, could be even an infant, that was kidnapped and then raised, among the non-Jews, and was just never ever taught about Shabbos. And today, I'd say the equivalent is, we live in a secular world, secular governments. Jewish. I myself, for most of my younger education, I grew up in the public school system, and you're not taught about Shabbos, and you're not taught about the Maisa Breshis, and you're not talked about, you don't talk about how Hashem created everything. So it's very easy in this world to not learn about Shabbos. So there's a concept of someone that never ever knew Shabbos, and there's an even crazier concept that the Gemara gets into, Hikir V'Shacha, Iker Shabbos, someone that actually knew it and then forgot it. Okay, so what is it from a halakhic standpoint? So Rashi, later in the next step in the Mishnah, he says something interesting, because the next part of the Mishnah is Hayodea Iker Shabbos, someone that knows the Iker Shabbos, and Rashi's going to give us an explanation of what does that mean? What does it mean to know the Iker Shabbos? So what is it to forget the Iker Shabbos, and what is it to know the Iker Shabbos? So from a halakhic standpoint, what Rashi says is Sheyesh Shabbos, I think the Torah, I may have forgot a base there, but that Shabbos is in the Torah. Shabbos is a concept from the Torah. And then from a halakhic standpoint, V'na'asru ba malachos. That you cannot, you're prohibited, na'asru, you're prohibited on it to do these things called malachos. And this is one of the most, I mean, if Shabbos is misunderstood, the whole essence of malacha, is very misunderstood. A creative action, bringing creation into the world. That's what's happening the 6 days of the week. We have 39 malachas, 39 malachos, 39 creative actions that we can do. And there's an even deeper concept, and we'll see when we start analyzing the Pasukim, that it's possible that, or it's probable that Hashem himself was using these 39 malachas in the whole process of Ma'aseh Bereshis, of creating everything. Right? So for the first 6 days of creation, Hashem's using all these things, right? And we see, because we know, like, one of the malachas is Zoreah, is planting. And on day 3, we'll get to it, but what did Hashem do? He starts planting, all the seeds and all the potential for all the plant growth and all the trees and the plants. Right? So Hashem himself not only created the malacha, the malachos, he's using the malacha to create everything that exists. Right? Pretty incredible. Okay, so this is the beginning. So we're not going to really go on a halakhic journey today. We're going to go on a deeper spiritual journey of what is the Ikar Shabbos. From a halakhic standpoint, you're prohibited from doing the 39 malacha. So someone that forgets about Shabbos either never knew that you weren't supposed to do these malacha, or forgot about a specific malacha, or forgot the whole concept that you're prohibited to do malacha. Okay, so we're going to understand when we see the creation. When we get down to the end, it's going to give us a greater understanding of this Rashi. In this Rashi, you're always going to sum up the most essential aspect. Like Rashi is he's the master of Peshat, the literal meaning of each pasuk, each verse in the Torah. And Rashi had Ruach HaKodesh, is divine inspiration from Hashem. And we're going to see how this little simple Rashi, when we really start to study this, is the essence of it all. The essence of it all. All right, so let's start at the beginning. We're going to start at the beginning. All right, so one interesting concept before we start. I didn't put this on the sheet, but I want to show you something really incredible. So in Lashon HaKodesh, that one's not working. So we said before, in Lashon HaKodesh, the holy language, and that's the language that everything was created with. So the 22 letters of Lashon HaKodesh have incredible power. Now, what's the first letter in the Aleph base? The Aleph. Right, so the Aleph has the gematria, it has a numerical value of just 1. But what is Hashem? What's the letter that Hashem uses to start the Torah? He uses the Beis. Once the Beis, so then it looks more like, I don't know if I can do it exactly, but let's see, when it's in the Torah, it looks a little more like you have like a bar up top, not a sofer, but you kind of have like a bar, and then you have a line, and then you kind of have your other bar. So the Beis, just by starting the Torah with the Beis, just in that use of that very first letter, all of a sudden, all in time and space are being created. The beginning of time and space is happening with this first letter. Okay, so the numerical value is a 2. So now all of a sudden, with the Beis, before the creation, there's only Hashem. And he's called in the Sifrei Kabbalah, in the Kabbalistic books, it's called the Ein Sof, meaning no end, endless, or infinite. But it's interesting because it's not called a word infinite. Like the true essence is Ein Sof, no end. Something that has no end. We live in this finite world where everything has ends. Right now we have an end. B'ezrat Hashem, we all go to 120 in good health and filled with Torah and mitzvos and gemilas chasadim and acts of kindness. But only Hashem has no end. So once we have now a Beis, once the Torah begins with a Beis, now we have something else. We have Hashem, the ultimate in the Aleph, the one, right? And now Hashem starts it with a Beis. And now we have the beginning of counting. We have 1 to 2, And the word Bereshis itself means in the beginning. So now time and space begin. And we'll look more deeply into this. But time and space begin. And now, Bereshis itself, the word Reshis means in the beginning, the first. So with or in the first. Now we're starting time. And then here what do we have? We have width, right? We have height. Right, we're getting into the dimensions. Right? We have length. I mean, it's not three-dimensional, but we have three-dimensional space. So we have time and space. Okay, so we'll start breaking it down more. All right, so let's start here. And we're going to talk about something very interesting, that those things Hashem had such thought when he created everything. He prepared 7 things he created even before he began the creation, just to prepare for the creation. So in the Gemara, in the Darim, right, you want to look it up, it's on dot 37. So those 7 concepts before the Maisa Bereshis, before the universe is created. And we're going to see why you can't even, without this, like you couldn't even have a universe. Okay, so the first is the Torah. The second is Teshuvah. I don't know if there's the third, and we'll go through each concept. The third is Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden. Fourth is Gehenna. And then the fifth is what we talked about a little bit before, the Kisei Kavod, the throne of glory. So this is Hashem's throne. And then 6 is the Beis HaMikdash, the temple. And then the 7th is the name of Mashiach. Alright, so why? So anybody have any guesses? Why did Hashem need to create these 7 things? Why did he need to create these 7 things even before he began, right, to create the universe, to create the earth and the universe and everything in it? Why did he start with these 7? So we're gonna take a look at it. We'll break each one down. Okay, so one thing that's interesting. So today's the York site for the I think it's the 5th of Av, if I have the date correct. So I believe it's the York site of the Arizal, Rabbi Yitzhak Luria. So maybe we, in honor of Rabbi Luria, maybe we get a little deeper today. Right, but Rabbi Luria, in his book Sefer Eitz Hayim, the Tree of Life, he created the book. He created the book as like a explanation on the Zohar, to give someone a system to understand the Zohar. And we'll see if I got it correct. Okay. So he talks about in his system that there's these 10 spheros, right? And these are mentioned in the Sifrei Kabbalah. So the 3 highest spheros, this is the intellectual capacity of a person. This is the 3 highest parts of the soul. This is what makes up the soul. This is what's called the Tselem Elokim, the image of God, and this forms the image of a man. And here, just briefly, we have Keser, we have Chachma. So this crown, wisdom, and Bina is understanding. So we're not going to go too deep into this, but I just want to give you guys a sense of this that we're going to see here. Here's Chesed, this is kindness and love. Gevura, this is strength or self-control. That balances out in Tiferes. And then we have Netzach. This is a deeper concept. It's a little hard to understand. It means like eternity, or victory, and here is Hod. To give you guys a little bit more understanding, so there's a person, we'll get into it real quick, there's a person associated with each one of these. Yesod is the foundation, and then the Malchus is the kingdom. So lower crown, the upper crown, Kesser is the upper crown, and Malchus is the kingdom. So this is the form of the whole universe. This is the structure. This is like, in a sense, it's a cosmic computer. So if you're familiar with physics, how can you have quantum entanglement, right? How can you have quantum entanglement? How come you can mess around with some atoms, in one part of the universe and it's affecting another part of the universe? Because Hashem's created a spiritual circuit board. Hashem's created a spiritual circuit board, and this is like the Olam Gadol. This is the universe. This is the structure of the universe. It's the underlying spiritual structure of the universe. So how can you have quantum entanglement? Because you have this cosmic circuit board, this cosmic computer. So you're messing around with some atoms over here, and you can affect atoms. So the top three are the intellectual capabilities, and then a person himself is an Olam Katan, a little universe. So our souls, this is the Selam Elohim. Our souls are also made out of these 10 sephiros, and we're going to see that in the creation there was the famous 10 mamaros. Those are the 10 things Hashem to bring the universe into creation, and it's related to each one of these. These are the 10. This is the structure. That's why base 10 is the great structure. As much as I hate to admit it, I'm very familiar with the American system of measurements. It drives me crazy to go to metric sometimes, but I hate to say it, metric system's based on 10, and it's probably greater truth. There's probably greater truth in using the metric.
Confirm that one.
There's probably greater truth in using the metric system, because the universe itself, the structure is 10. Now, why I'm just bringing this up, in honor of the Arizal, but also that we see here, these are the lower 7. So these correspond with the 6 days, the first 6 days of creation, right? And then the 7th, Malchus, kingship. And who do we greet on Shabbos? The Shabbos Malka, the Shabbos queen. So Shabbos, we're going to see, is related to kingship, kingdom, and it completes the whole structure. But the lower 7 are the 7 days, of the Maisa Bereshis, the 7 days of creation, and we're going to see that this could be why that this is all in the pre-creation. This is Hashem setting this all up in the pre-creation, before even the first pasuk, before even this bays, and we see why we need all these things even pre-creation. But these 7 spheros, it could be why we need these 7 here. Okay, and and then it can relate to them exactly. And you probably heard the concept of like Hashem wanted to create the universe with Gevurah. He wanted to create it on this side with Din, right? But he chose to start here. So the first day really started with Chesed. The Torah begins with Chesed and ends with Chesed. It begins with kindness and ends with kindness. I didn't draw it so great, but if I drew it a little clearer, you would see there's a right side, and this relates to Chesed. So the right side is all love and kindness. The left side is all din and judgment and justice, right? And like self-control, restraint. And then the middle column, which may not be so clear, is rachamim. It's compassion. When you balance, so we see like we're balancing, and we have balances, and then we end up, the middle column. Okay. So
Rabbi, one question.
Yes.
This pattern, is it a universal pattern, or is this a Jew pattern for Jews? Is this talking about mankind, or Jews specifically?
This is the greatest sod. This is the structure of the universe. This is the structure of a person. This is why a person can relate to the universe, because we're a little universe. There we live in the big universe. So the person has great power. So unfortunately, in the secular enlightenment, right, which is billed as the enlightenment from the Dark Ages, from the Middle Ages in Europe, but in a sense, the Renaissance and the Enlightenment, what it returned mankind to was just the wisdom of the Greco-Roman system. So really the Renaissance was really a reawakening to a lot of the ancient wisdom from Greece and from Rome that was lost somewhere in Europe. And the Renaissance and the Enlightenment are really a reawakening to that. And we really haven't had what the Zohar talks about. And the Zohar means light, you know. And the Zohar talks about in the future, like the maskilim. And we'll see how that word was misused. Because the Enlightenment, the Haskalah, the Jewish Enlightenment people, they call themselves the maskilim, related to Seichel, like intelligent ones, the enlightened ones. But we really haven't had the true enlightenment yet, the true Renaissance, the true enlightenment of the world, which is the light of the Torah, which we'll see. And when this whole system is known to the world, then we're going to look back, you know, as this Renaissance, the secular enlightenment period that we're living in right now, and they'll call this the Dark Ages. You know, even though we have this fantastic, you know, boom in Greco-Roman knowledge and technology and all these amazing things, but we'll see why there's components that are missing, because it's only the revelation of the physical. So physics looks at the world, like Einstein was famous for bringing the concept of a 4-dimensional universe. But the truth is we live in a 5-dimensional universe. And then the 5th dimension is what they're leaving out. So the 4 dimensions, and this is what Einstein's brilliance was, you have the physical world, you have space, right, which is made of, you know, the 3 dimensions. You have length, width, and height. And you start getting into a physical dimension. So I was saying, when you get the first letter, now all of a sudden you get length, width, and height. You get 3 dimensions. 3 dimensions you can measure. You got space. Now, like a space for the universe is created. And then you get the beginning of time. And now time starts. And time is the 4th dimension. So Einstein had this brilliant idea that we're really living in 4 dimensions. We're really living in space and time at the same time. You know, we can move around in space, or we can be still in space. But no matter if we're moving in space or not, we're always moving through time. We're always moving through time. And the 5th dimension that's brought in Sefer Yetzirah is that there's actually 5 dimensions. There's Olam, right? There's Olam, which is world, universe, so there's space. There's Shana, there's year or time. And then the missing component from this enlightenment, the secular enlightenment that we're living in right now, is Nefesh, is Neshama, is the soul, is the spiritual dimension. The 5th dimension is the spiritual dimension, and that's what's missing right now. That's why we're living in the Dark Ages. Because what's missing is we're going to see the importance of Shabbos. But what's missing is that not only are you moving through time and space, but what spiritual activities you do have a great effect on the world. When we do a mitzvah, right, we're changing the world through, you know, through the ruchnius. And when we said, so what's the secret of the Maaseh Bereishis, that Betzalel knew that you can actually take these 22 letters, right, of the Lashon HaKodesh, of the holy tongue, the holy language, and Hashem used them, and then there's 10 names of Hashem that are associated with the 10 spheros. Right, the 10 names mentioned of Hashem in the Torah are, you know, and I believe Tiferes, right? Tiferes is Hashem's name. I'm not going to go through all the names right now. Well, sorry, but so like the 10 names of Hashem, and this is like the essence of all creation. Okay, so I got a little sidetracked there because the Arizal. So let's start here. So it's related to these lower 7, and we needed 7 concepts to even have a universe. To even have a universe, Hashem felt these 7 things had to be created even before, you know, the universe began. So the Torah, any guesses why we need a Torah?
That's a good question. Is it blueprint?
It's the blueprint.
Yeah.
No builder, no great builder, no great architect, no great creator is ever going to start a project without great thought about what he wants to create. So if you don't even have a blueprint, how can you create? How can you create? You need to have a plan. The Torah is the essence. It's the essence, and the Torah is what's used to create everything. And the Torah is how everything's run. So before you're going to even have a creation, you need the blueprint. You need the whole plan of what you're going to create. Now, why teshuvah? Any guesses? Why
That's where you
teshuva?
don't follow the blueprint.
Yeah, because Hashem's gonna give us something. He's gonna give us bechira. He's gonna give us free will. There's gonna be a Yetzer Hara. There's gonna be an evil impulse that's gonna try to get us to not follow the blueprint. Not read. I mean, what's one of the greatest Yetzer Haras? Not reading the instructions when you get something. Everyone wants to jump right in, use it. Yeah. But if you actually take the time sometimes to understand how to use something first, it's going to be much more powerful. So we have a Yetzer Hara to tell us not to follow the blueprint, not to follow the law, and then we have the Yetzer Tov is trying to motivate us to follow the law. So so if we mess up, we can constantly be able to get back on track. So teshuva is, I can say it like truly, I don't know, but just getting back to following the Torah. I don't know how to say it. Get back on track. So ability to return to Hashem and the Torah. Because what's the point of having the blueprint? What's the point of having the blueprint? Because people get frustrated. It is hard. It's challenging. Life is not. No one ever said, "Oh, life's so easy." No one. No one's ever said, "Oh, life is so easy," right? Because sometimes we need to get back on track, right? So even built into the year, look where we are now. Talking about Teshuvah, we're in the 3 weeks right now. 17th of Tammuz to Tisha B'Av, and we're missing a big component, which we'll talk about soon, and we got to get back on track. So this is a period we got to get back on track we're missing a vital ingredient. We have the Torah, we have the Teshuvah, but we're missing a vital ingredient right now. And we need a way to get back on track. And then soon after the 3 weeks, back to Elul, the whole month of Teshuvah, of looking at the year. How do we use the year? How do we want to use the next year? Planning. Okay, Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden. The Garden of Eden, unlike Gehenna, so one easy thing is it's the reward, right? The Garden of Eden that's the reward. But what's also interesting is it's the goal. It's the goal. It's the goal of all the Maisa Bereshis, all the creation. Because what's interesting is when we start going through each aspect of the creation, where did it all start? Where did Hashem first place the beginning of mankind? Where did he place Adam and Chava? Where did he place Adam and Eve? In the Gan Eden, in the Garden of Eden, which literally means the garden of pleasure, the garden of delight. And that is the world. But we do not feel like we're living in Gan Eden right now. Right? And because Gan Eden's not here right now, because and we'll see, as everything, there's a spiritual component to everything, and there's a physical component of it. And you can think of it in a way, to give you a mushal, to give you an example, you could have, let's say the physical, let's say the spiritual is you have an old time, film projector, and you shine the light right through the film, and then you just have this light, right? This light's being projected, and then it has, and then the light projects on a screen. So you have the ruchnius being projected, the light's coming into the world, and then then it manifests as the physical. And really, the deep system is that Hashem's light, the Or Ein Sof, the infinite light that's emanating from Hashem. And it's what we call the Or Haganus, the hidden light. And that's the light we bring out on Hanukkah, the 36 candles of Hanukkah. We're going to get to the 36 hours that Adam and Chava, that Adam and Eve lived in the Garden of Eden. They spent 36 hours here. So they spent the 24 hours of the first Shabbos, and then they spent, I believe it was if I'm doing my math correctly, is it the 12 hours before, then the 12 hours before. They had 12 hours Erev Shabbos to get ready for the first Shabbos. And those 36 hours, so the beginning of mankind was 36 hours in Gan Eden, and we haven't been back since, right? Haven't been back since. But this is the goal. This is the goal. So what's the whole goal? What's the whole goal of humanity? Is to bring Gan Eden back into the physical world. It's in a higher spiritual world right now. And there's many places in the Zohar, many Sifrei Kabbalah, it talks about like the Siddiqim, when they're nifter, when their souls, are nifter, they go to the spiritual Gan Eden, and they stand around, they're in a circle around Hashem and the Shekhinah of Hashem, and they bask, and the direct, the Or Ein Sof, the infinite light, the Ziv of the Shekhinah. And then, as we were talking about the analogy of the projector, Hashem's infinite light comes through these 10 spheres made out of this infinite light, and then there's connecting channels, connecting paths, and there's 22 connecting paths which I didn't draw. But what are those 22 connecting paths? Those are the 22 letters of the Lashon HaKodesh. And that's why I'm saying this is the spiritual computer. This is it. This is the cosmic computer that Hashem created, and then this cosmic computer was used to create everything. Okay.
So Rebbe is kind of, I wouldn't say counterintuitive. You have Gan Eden, you have this world, you have Gan Eden.
Yeah.
But in order to get to the second Gan Eden, you have to have free will. And free will is the challenge, and I assume the second Gan Eden is the free will is not the challenge anymore. It's sort of the conduit to get from one Gan Eden to the other.
It's like, we were given a taste at the beginning.
Right.
And we'll talk about it too. We had two main pivotal Shabboses in a sense, right? Adam and Chava, that very first Shabbos, and then we had the first Shabbos as a nation, right? With the Man, we'll get to, right? So we had two main Shabboses. Every Shabbos is big. Every Shabbos taps into Me'ein Olam Haba, right? Every Shabbos taps into it. But there was two big points, in history, and then we'll talk about, the power of Shabbos. Okay, so let's just keep on going here. So then, now 4. So why do we need this? And why do we need the place of the spiritual punishment? Okay. So this doesn't work like people think, or most people think. So unfortunately, most people have a concept of Gehenna from Christianity. Because we're in Gullus, we're in exile, we've been in exile for a long time, and really unfortunately, the world's not really, they're not beating down our door to listen to us, right? They're not, unfortunately we live in a world right now, and when I talk about we live in the dark ages, the world is beating down the door to ask a physicist or a biologist what's the nature of the world. And they have a great amount of knowledge, but they're missing the most important part. They have an incomplete vision. Why it's so tricky is they have the Greco-Roman vision, and why Greece is called darkness, Choshen, as we get into Hanukkah. So we have the 36 lights of the Hanukkah menorah tapping back into these 36 hours in Gan Eden versus the darkness. So what's the darkness of Greece? They have all this great knowledge and philosophy, and we see all the technology that's been created. So how's that darkness? It's darkness because they're missing the main component. Because they're missing this, and they're missing that it's all of this is just to connect us back to Hashem. They're missing the purpose. So all they're doing is studying the projection on the screen, but they're missing that it's being projected. Right? And they're missing the projector, right? The emanator, the creator of it all. Okay. So Gehenna, so what I'm saying is this doesn't work like Christianity says it works. Christianity is you don't follow their rules, you're there, you're getting punished, right? So we said there is a Yetzer Hara, there's an evil impulse that's trying to get us to not follow the law, the blueprint. We have Teshuvah as a great gift to us to be able to get back up. Like a tzaddik, he falls 7 times. Sometimes sometimes we slip. Unfortunately, it's very easy to make an error, right? Someone can even forget the Iker of Shabbos. When you see how important Shabbos is, and that's one of the main disconnects of the world right now. But we need this place now. It doesn't quite work like they think, because from the Torah's perspective, how it works is why is there this way, and it's also interesting. There's 7 levels of Shemayim, and there's 7 levels of Gehenna, relating to these 7. And there's a front and there's a back of all this. There's there's 2 spiritual forces. There's the 2 spiritual energies, not physical energy. We have physical energies. We have electricity as a physical energy. We have like nuclear as a physical energy. But there's spiritual energy. And the spiritual energy is really what creates the physical energies. But the spiritual energies, we have a positive light spiritual energy that's called Kedusha, right? And that works when we need something called Tahara, right? And then that's what the mitzvahs create. That's what learning Torah, tapping into the blueprint. And we'll see, that's why we say, Asher Kiddeshanu b'mitzvosah, like, which makes me holy, which lets me, and the more kavana, the more careful we are for the mitzvahs, that positive spiritual energy of Kedusha, the energy of holiness, actually flows into us. And when we really get it right, we're going to see that there's, like, you talk about a nuclear power reactor, there's a spiritual power reactor. Anybody want to guess what it's called? What makes holiness? There's actually something, it's a house, its literally name is a house that makes, the house of making holiness. And that is the literal definition of this when we get to it. The base, the house of the mem, mikdash, the making. This is a Kedusha generator. This receives the Kedusha, the light flowing down, and it generates it to the world. That's the spiritual power reactor, and that's what's missing. We'll talk about that. Okay, so this, it says in the Gemara, Gehenna for the Jewish people is light, but for the non-Jews, and maybe you could even say for the wicked, for the Rishayim, it's darkness. The point of this is not that people are not supposed to be being punished forever. The point of this is what this really is it's really a punishment, it's a purifier. What it really is it's a purifier. It's a furnace, right? It's a furnace. You take the metal and you get out all the impurities. That's what this is really for. But what ideally Hashem wants us to do is, Hashem wants us to get it all done in the world, in the physical world, right? Ideally, everyone in the world, to get it done here, right? To get all the work done here and not need it done here. Now, unfortunately, we go through this here. Like the world can, people, the famous, like the world can be hell. Life can seem like hell. It can seem like Gehenna sometimes. And we see the famous examples of like Abraham, he was thrown into the Or Kasti. He was literally thrown into a furnace, right? Literally thrown into a furnace, purifying him of whatever needed to be purified, just like we purify metal. And then that's how we describe Mitzrayim. And that's how we describe Egypt. It was like all of Egypt, like it was being like put into like this hot burning furnace to purify us of the impurities that come out. It's like this pure gold, pure silver, to be able to receive this. So the idea of this is that why is it light? Why is it light to the Jewish person that goes down to Gehenna? And then we say like no one ever is there for more. You're not supposed to be there for more than 12 months. And I think even in 11 months, we maybe stop doing mitzvahs for people or tehillim people because we don't want to say like you didn't get the maximum. We don't want to judge someone favorably. But it's light because now you're in the world. You're what's called the Olam HaEmes. We live right now in the Olam HaSheker, the world of lies, of untruth. The truth is hidden right now. And when you get to the spiritual world, then there's nothing's hidden anymore. So why it's light is, what happens is, it's the embarrassment. It's the embarrassment when a person sees who their neshama, who their soul was supposed to be. What was the blueprint for that person? And when they see what they could have been, when they see what they could have been, the embarrassment starts to then strip off like all those averas that person fell into. You know, all the, and so what's the dark spiritual energy? What's the negative spiritual energy? That's what's called Tuma. Right? So that's so that was the battle in Egypt. So the Egyptians were the masters of Kishu, of magic, dark magic, because they would use the negative spiritual energy. So the negative spiritual energy, you guys may have heard about this. These are called the klipos, the shells. So what's happening there is the avera. What does avera do? First thing it starts. We said like each one of these is the name of Shem. It starts to blemish the name. So instead of this brilliant sphere of light connected by these 22 paths of light, it starts to like dim it. You know, it can get dim. You can get dim in us, and you can get dim in the universal sense. And the path can start to get blocked by these klipos. They're blocking. They're the back of the sphere. They're the black. They're preventing the flow. Right. So the mitzvahs are allowing the flow to come down, and that's the kedusha, lights flowing down, the positive light spiritual energy, the kedusha, tahara, and then the reverse, the back side of it, we call it the sitra akra. The other side is blocking it. The klipos are the shells. They're blocking the light. And that's what's missing. So that's what's missing from this Western world right now. That's why we're in the Olam HaSheker. Is there great? So it says in the Gemara, like if someone says there's no knowledge, in the other nations, do not believe them, right? There's great knowledge. I mean, look what the Western world has accomplished. Trains, cars, planes, rockets, satellites, medicines. MRI machines, electromagnetic. It's endless, right? The knowledge.
You know what the greatest accomplishment has been? People don't think of it. All through history until 100 years ago, there was never enough food for mankind.
Yeah.
Agricultural revolution has been the greatest accomplishment, that the earth can now feed everybody. Right.
But what's interesting, you bring up a very interesting point, and we're going to get to it. And what was the very first thing? So I can tell you, so that's good, but I can tell you the missing component.
Oh, okay.
But that's good. But it's good. Like all the agriculture, the great, like harvesting machines,
right.
And people aren't in the field for 12 hours a day anymore. So the great technology. But if we go back to the beginning, the very essence, right? What was one of the first things that Hashem wanted Adam to do? The tefillah for the rain. So all the potential, all the plants, all the growth in the garden, everything's there. But what's missing in all that great, agricultural technology is sometimes you have famines. So you can have all your great harvesting machines, and all your processing plants and all your amazing technology. But if you don't have rain, and that's why we have all Masechta Tainus, about fasting and davening to Hashem for rain. If you don't have rain, that's why 2 times a year, right? 2 times a year we daven for one half of the year we're davening for the tal, the dew, and the other half we're davening for the rain. It's and that's carrying on what Adam Rishon started, and what Hashem wanted, mankind's involvement, not just all these amazing tools which are incredible. I'm not taking away from the hydroponics and the irrigation; it's all amazing. But without the rain, the system doesn't work. Right? And man's interaction in the nefesh, and the ruchnius aspect is so vital, and that's what's missing. So here, why is this light? So when the neshama sees what it can be, and sees that Hashem's the ultimate truth, so the neshama that wants to attach itself, the soul that wants to attach itself to Hashem, all these klipos, all these averas start to burn away. And the goal of this is once again to then bring the soul here back to here. So the goal is not that someone, and that's why you see it. It's like this is Adam and Chava never lived here, right? This was never on Earth, right? This is never on Earth. I mean, even though sometimes we make it on Earth, but we make Earth, like hell, like Gehenna, like sometimes, unfortunately. But this was never supposed to be on Earth. This is supposed to be on Earth, but this is to get us back. So the only purpose of this is to get us back. And then I think this may close. I don't know. But unfortunately, then you have like the Rishayim, Unfortunately, you have the great, and that's why you have Amalek, and that's why, the mitzvah can be hard to understand. Why does Amalek have to go? Why does he have to be erased? Because when Amalek gets to Gehenna, and he knows that Hashem's the ultimate truth, and he sees this whole system of how it all works, and that this is the blueprint, he still doesn't want any part of it. And that's, that's the ultimate tragedy, right? The ultimate tragedy of a person. And that's why, unfortunately, right. So it's very famous Maisa in Masechta Gittin. And then you can learn this on Tisha B'Av. It's a famous thing to learn on Tisha B'Av. It's the whole story of Kamsa and Bar Kamsa. It talks about the sinas kinam, the baseless hatred, inside the Jewish people. And then this very famous part where Onkelos, I think it's Onkelos, he is a nephew of an emperor. I think it's debated if he's the nephew of Emperor Titus or Emperor Hadrian, but he wants to convert. So he wasn't a Jew yet. He didn't have a restriction on using the kishuf, using the powers, the dark side energy, and he actually summoned. He did some kind of seance where he was able to communicate with souls of people, right, that were in Gehenna. So he gets his, he summons his, he somehow can talk to his uncle, the emperor, and the emperor is now in the Olam HaEmes, he's in Gehenna, and the emperor sees, and Onkelos says, who rules in the other world? Who rules in the spiritual world? It's Hashem, it's Yisrael, there's nothing else here. And then his advice is, even though he sees it's only Hashem and it's only Yisrael, he says, rebel against them, fight against them, he says, don't join them. Don't become a ger. And then the famous non-Jewish sorcerer and prophet Bilam, I think he's summoned next, and he he talks to him, and same story. Yisrael rules, Hashem, there's nothing else, and fight against them, never. Now what's interesting then is he speaks to Yashka, he speaks to Yishu, J.C. Penney. Does everyone kind of got what we're talking about? So the Jew who went off the derech in a big way, he was in rabbinical school, and he got kicked out, and then he started getting into these dark arts, into kishuf, into sorcerer. And what's interesting now is, but then you have a Jew that's there, and even though he's done such damage to the world, he's got people praying to a man that's dead, and even though that there's some concepts, and Rambam says the whole purpose of Christianity and Islam is to bring the concepts of the Torah, to the world, so then everyone will be able to, partake in, when we get to the final steps. And he asks, now he asks the Jewish person that's there, who rules in the other world? It's only Hashem and Israel. And now the Jew, even though he's being punished for a long time now, way beyond 12 months, but what's his advice? Join them. Love them. Never let go. Amazing, right? It's such a different perspective. Because this is it. Hashem is it. This is it. This is all there is. This is the reality. Cling to it. Join it. Love it. Never let go. Amazing. Okay. So now, number 5, the Kisei Kavod. So this is the throne. This is the aspect we talked of the Maisa Merkava. How Hashem runs the world. So why do we need this? Anybody guess why do we need the throne of glory?
No, we distinguish the throne of glory. You have Hashem.
Yeah.
It's not like two entities. Well, you say an entity. You have Hashem and Kisei Kavod.
Yeah.
In association.
Yeah.
So is Kisei Kavod means limited.
I'll show you.
Yeah.
So I'll show you something very important. So this is a great misunderstanding. This is how the Torah becomes misunderstood.
Right.
Pasuk literally says, image of a man sitting on top of the throne. Hashem has no image. Hashem's not physical. As we said before, Hashem's the Ein Sof, infinite, everywhere. He's not in the world's inside of him. Right? He's the place of the world is not his place, right? We're going to see he's beyond time and space. He's created time and space. We're going to really see that soon. This was the image. When it says we saw the image of a man on top of the throne, it's a vision of these 10 spheros. And these are in the shape of a man. This is the man's head. These are the arms. This is the body. These are the legs. This image of these 10 spheros were sitting on the throne. But Hashem is the infinite being that's sending the infinite light through all these structures. So these are some of the misunderstandings, because this is secret. This is not even taught in most yeshivas, much less this is definitely not taught in public school. But so when it says something like the image of Hashem, when it says something like the right hand of Hashem doesn't have a hand. Hashem's an infinite being, has no part. But it means Hashem's working through this right hand. He's working, he's interacting with the world through love and kindness. The left hand of Hashem, he's interacting with the world through din and judgment, right? He's interacting through Gevurah. He's interacting through Chesed. These are what Hashem created. Hashem's just using this system that he created. And that's when you start getting into the parts of Hashem. That's the misunderstanding. Hashem has no parts. He has no image. And we talked about Yashka before, right? That's a great misunderstanding. Hashem is not a man. It says it specifically, and gave it to Bilam, gave it to the non-Jewish prophet. Hashem is not a man. But it's this structure. Hashem works through this structure, and this is our structure. This is the Selim of the team. This is the image of God. Like how can we have an image of an infant? Because this is made. These are made out of the Roshem, the impression, the what was left over of the infinite light. These are made out of infinite light. Our neshamas are made out of infinite light. We're not Hashem, but we're made from some of this amazing, infinite light that's emanating from Hashem. Okay, so why do we need this? So if this is the law, if this is the blueprint, right? You need, the king needs to rule the kingdom, right? So this is ruling the kingdom, getting people. So this is running the world according to the Torah, right? Running, or maybe ruling. I don't know. We could say, I guess ruling may be better. I don't know. America, we're taught to
Conclusion.
We're taught to rebel against all kings, right? So this is like ruling the world.
Controlling.
Could be controlling, ruling the world by the Torah. Right, if Torah is the blueprint, if Torah is the law, we can add law here too, because it literally does mean law. If Torah is the law, and it's the blueprint, then the world has to be run by that law, right? So this is the law, this is the way the universe is created, it has to be run by that law, and that's the Kisei Kavod.
Willing is different than teaching, though, right? Introducing, teaching, exposing.
But if we really look at how Hashem's running the world, he really is he's running it like a teacher, right? Everything's a lesson, right? Like, the world needs to be punished with the Mabul, but there's a lesson in it. There's always a lesson in how the punishment's coming. The world's run mida kenega mida, measure for measure, which is really the deeper spiritual concept of Newton's physical concept of for every action there's an opposite and equal reaction. The physical concept is every time you apply force in the world, you get an opposite reaction. The spiritual concept is for everyone's spiritual action, there's mida kenega mida. There's perfectly measured response to people's actions. Right? There's a perfectly measured response. There's reward and punishment. Now they're hidden sometimes. It's not always obvious. Right? It's not always obvious. The person doesn't always do an aver and is immediately punished. The person doesn't always do a mitzvah and is immediately rewarded. It's a whole lifetime of trying to grasp it, to see it. Okay, but it has to be run. The crown down to the kingdom. It all has to be run, and it's in here. It's in the intellectual. It's in this spiritual world. This is where Gan Eden is. This is where the throne is. It's there. It's up there. And what's interesting too is the Shabbos Malka. So I didn't go into this before, but this is the crown. This is the king. This is the queen. Right. This is also. There's also an aspect of like this being the Ancient of Days. Right. The king and the queen. And then here is the prince, and here's the princess. So what's very amazing, we'll see, we'll get into it later, but the powerful aspect of Shabbos is that this, the kingdom, Malchus, on Shabbos, the princess sits on the queen's throne on Shabbos. That's how powerful this day is. That's why this day can change everything, right? That's why Shabbos can change everything. We'll see how it can change the whole world. All right, we're gonna take a break soon. We're at 10, so I was gonna take a break at 10. Should we just finish the last two?
Yeah.
And then take a break? Okay. So, Beis HaMikdash. So as we said before, the Beis HaMikdash literally means, so it's the temple, on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, but it literally means the house that Mikdash, right? That Mikdash. And we see here the word Kodesh. But when we have a mem in Lashon HaKodesh, the way a mem works is the mem means it makes the thing happen. It makes something happen. So here it's making Kodesh. It's making holiness. All right, so we talked before about the concept of like, there's the big universe, there's the small universe. Each of us are a small universe. And then there's the way the substation or the connection of how we interact with it all. And then there's the connection. There's let's call it the medium, the medium-sized universe. And that's this. That's the temple. The temple works like a person works. So there's like the Kodesh HaGadoshim, the Holy of the Holies. Inside the Holy of the Holies is the Aron HaKodesh, the Ark of the Covenant. Inside there is the Luchos, the 2 sapphire tablets, and the Torah scroll. So the whole blueprint, the Torah, it's put in this. There's the Keruvim. We haven't even got to the angels yet. When we start getting the days of creation, there's the Keruvim, the angels. We'll get into all that. And that relates to this. So the Torah is inside the Holy of the Holies, and that relates to the top 3. The intellectual, the intellectual, where we get the ability to speak, to think, it's from these. So animals and everyone, there's 5 levels of the soul, and they can get, and they're generally turned off. Like a person, like the lowest level, a nefesh, at the very bottom, the lowest level. So I think even in rocks, like plants, animals, everything has the lowest level of life, the nefesh. But then you can get more and more turned on. You get more and more levels turned on. The more you're learning the Torah, the more you're doing the mitzvahs, the more you're perfecting your midos. And these are the midos. These are the emotions, and these are the intellect. And what we want is we want the intellect to control the emotions. We kind of live in a world where people, like the emotions, controls the intellect. Right? Everything's upside down, everything's backwards. But the goal or the plan is that the intellect should control the emotions, and the emotions can be controlled. Like we have mitzvahs that we're commanded to love Hashem. How can you have a mitzvah to love Hashem? You got to work on it. It's not, you can control the midos. We have, I personally, I think a hard one. If everyone's ever really tried to dive into this mitzvah, it's really hard. Like, don't seek revenge. Don't bear a grudge. That's not natural. It's not natural. If someone does something that ticks us off, if someone says something that we don't like or does something that we don't like, it's not. It's easy to fall into, and each of these has the opposite, right? That we said the dark side, the klipo, the back of it. So the back of love, what's the back of love?
Hate.
Right? Like cruelty, hate, right? Hate. So there's a back side. We have the Sitra Kedusha, the front side, and that's why we're focused on the front side, the side of holiness. But there's a Sitra Akra, the other side, right? So if you're not tapping into this, So that mitzvah, so you think about it, the mitzvah, like someone does something to really get us aggravated, right? And we're like, no, that person must be brought to justice, like he wronged me, right? And we have a mitzvah that says no. The natural instinct, yetzer hara, instinct. Natural instincts to go to this. Someone did something, you're crying out for justice because you were wrong. But we have a mitzvah to say no. Turn this. Go from here to here. It's not easy. You got to keep these mitzvahs. You got to work. These take work. It's like anything else. You got to study the plan. You got to work. You got to do it. But it can bring great holiness, and it can break the other side. Like when someone goes lamayla minateva, doesn't act in the natural way. Right? When someone's just working on that mitzvah, don't seek revenge, don't get angry, don't bear a grudge. Then it gets everything flowing. Right? Then it gets everything flowing. All right, so we need a place. So if we have the law, and if we have a king that's ruling, right? So one thing is we need a palace, right? We need a palace for the king, right? We need a palace for the king. Where can the law come down to earth? So we see it manifest in here to complete the whole system. So the upper crown, right? The upper crown, it's always going to be Hashem, right? It's like, Hashem's created all this. He's the Melech HaOlam. He's the king in the universe. Hashem's created all. Hashem runs it all. He's the king. But Hashem gives, right? Hashem gives. We're going to see he's going to give rulership to the Malchus Beis David, the kingdom, right? The kingdom of King David. So here, but the king himself, the true king, right? Hashem. And Hashem manifests something called the Shekhinah. Once again, I think it's from here. Bina, very interesting. But the Shekhinah itself, and I'm telling you, someone asked me, before I went to yeshiva when I was living in Los Angeles, I just started learning Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan, I think his book on, it's called I think, Jewish meditation, Kabbalah and Jewish meditation. I forgot the exact title of the book. That's it. Here, let me. So I was learning this book, Meditation and Kabbalah, and I was learning it in a crazy place. This was right before I was going to go to Aisha Torah, and I was learning at this place called the Philosophical Research Society, and I'm telling you, it's more of a Sitra Achra type place. It was like all kinds of books on magic. It was by this high-ranking Freemason guy named Manly P. Hall, But I'm telling you, it was way past its heyday. Like when I was in Los Angeles, when I was in the film industry, and then Kabbalah became all the rage, all the Kabbalah Center. But this was like the old Hollywood, the old Hollywood. They were looking for mysticism and magic and all that stuff, not necessarily Torah. They had some Torah books in there. And I was sitting there, and it was crazy. I was sitting there on a Shabbos. And basically everyone in there, this is way past the heyday of this place, everyone there was basically a Jew. There was literally a girl named Eden, that was the librarian. That was Mr. Harris, so he was some, I don't know, sorcerer, magician, whatever he was. But it was basically filled with Jews. And so, a Jewish man from South America, he heard that I got the opportunity to go to Jerusalem and learn at Aisha Torah. And he gave me some money. He gave me $40. He's like, this is amazing. You're going to Israel. Here's $40. And I went into the bookstore there, and I bought that book. And then there's another Jewish guy, and I was at a table. We were in this weird, I don't know, sorcerer's base midrash. But it's basically filled with Jews, because we're all lost, we're all disconnected. And this young Jewish guy, he asked me, what's the Shekhinah? And I was like, I don't know. I just saw that word all over that book. I don't know. I don't understand. I'm telling you today, even decades and decades later. I mean, this is around 2002, 2001. He asked me the question. I went to Israel 2003. I still cannot fully. I've seen it explained in many in the Sifrei Kabbalah. It is somehow the physical manifestation of an infinite being, or a part, or an emanation. But so if Hashem's everywhere, right? If Hashem's everywhere, He's showing us in a limited part of space and time some of that Or Ein Sof, some of that infinite light. He's showing us a little bit, even though we can never see the true essence of Hashem, we can never see Hashem face to face. But the Shekinah is Hashem is doing something for us. We're in this physical world. He is giving us a little bit of that Or Ein Sof, that infinite light. And when we traveled in the Midbar by day, that it was concealed. The Shekinah was concealed in a pillar of cloud, and at night it was concealed in a pillar of fire. And it rested, talking about inside the Kodesh Kedoshim, inside the Holy of the Holies, in the Mishkan and in the temple. It rests on top of the Aron HaKodesh, on the Ark of the Covenant. So the Ark of the Covenant, the Aron HaKodesh, it was hidden from the second temple. So as far as I understand, the Shekinah never rested inside the Kodesh Kedoshim in the second temple. But when people went to the first temple, the first base of Mikdash, they could look, and above that, I believe, above that Kodesh Kedoshim, I don't know if it was above, but it may have been, but above it, they could see the pillar of cloud and the pillar of fire. But if they couldn't see it above, then for sure, on Yom Kippur, when they open the doors and open the curtain, when the Kohen Gadol goes in there, then people would get a glimpse of it. People get a glimpse of the cloud and the pillar of cloud and pillar of fire with the Shekinah inside it. And the Shekinah was also up on Har Sinai. I know we're getting a little off track, but it's also related. It's also related to Shabbos. So when we get into the really deeper meaning of Shabbos, we'll see how it's related to Shabbos Malka, because I believe it's probably talking about the Shekinah, right? And it's one of the deepest concepts. And today, when the guy asked me, what's the Shekinah? I was like, I don't know. It's that word I saw in the book all the time. I don't know if I have a better answer. Maybe it's a little bit better. But it's one of the deepest concepts. But it's Hashem connecting us in this physical world. And it's inside the palace of the king. And our whole goal, and the Ramban, he says, what's the whole goal of Geula? It's not just coming out of Egypt. And earlier relates to that song, Dayenu. It's not just coming out of Egypt. It's not just crossing the Red Sea in a miraculous way. It's not just coming to Mount Sinai. It's not just hearing Hashem speak. It's not just even receiving the Torah. It's not even just going into the land of Israel. It's not even just building the base of Mikdash. But until the Shekinah rests and lives inside the Jewish people, in the midst of the Jewish people, like it rested on the Avos and the Amachos, Abraham, Yitzhak, Yaakov, like it rested on Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And then there's a deeper concept of one day it will rest not only in the midst of all of us, literally on us. Like the Shekinah will rest, like we, not only the base of Mikdash, but we will be the home for the Shekinah too, right? And that's when we get at the higher states of like Ruach HaKodesh and Nevuah, the Shekinah rests on a person, right? And then they have this direct communication through the spiritual circuit board to connect with Hashem. Okay, so then, why is the name of Mashiach? That's a great mystery. When's he coming? What's his name and when's he coming? We've been waiting a long time. So what do you got any idea? Why is this so important? Why is Mashiach so important? Why is...
Well, it's debatable what the world... It's two views, basically, I guess. What the world... Will the world be as it is now with poverty and hunger and everything?
Yeah.
Or will it be a completely different world? So that alone is... what happens when Mashiach comes?
Right, so we do know this. Like when we get to the end of the process, we don't know how the process is going to work.
Right.
But what Mashiach's going to do is something so simple. He's going to connect the whole thing together. And there's two. There's Mashiach ben Yosef from Yesod. Because this is all the spirituality, and it needs to come here and convert, and this is the physical world. Malchus is the physical world. So this is Mashiach ben David. So this is the king that's descended from Yosef, from Joseph, and this is the king that's descended from David. So what's so important? So we talk about what can block it all. What can block it all? What's blocking the flow? The main thing that's blocking the flow, right? The main thing that's blocking the flow. So what we just saw right before we're about to go into Eretz Yisrael, where we just were in all the last few parshas. So the daughters, the Benos Moab. So what's blocking the flow? One of the most dangerous things, all the physical temptations. If we get stuck in all the physical temptations, then we're stuck here. We're stuck in the physical world and we're not connecting all of this. So who is going to help us open up the connection is the descendant of Yosef Tzaddik. The Tzaddik is the Yesod HaOlam. He's the foundation of the whole world. Because the Tzaddik can overcome all the physical temptations. So we see the two ways in which Mashiach can come. So it's generally associated that the poor man on the donkey, and the donkey, the chamor, the donkey, is related in Lashon HaKodesh to chomer, matter, physical. Physical. But he's riding on top of it. Talking about a tzaddik that's conquered the physical. Like Yosef at tzaddik. He knew how he's a tzaddik because he knew how to conquer the physical desires. And when we conquer the physical desires, then we open so first we need to open back up. We need to turn the computer on. Turn it off, and turn it off and turn it on again. And that's going to be Mashiach ben Yosef. Turn it back on. And then once it's turned back on, once we know how to break the physical desires, now we can really connect the whole system. We can get this back. We start learning this really well. We know the Torah really well. The world's running according to the Torah. And also the Sanhedrin is another vital component. So how's the law being learned and run down here by the Sanhedrin and by the Melech? And then the Kohanim, right, they're working in what we call the spiritual reactor, right? They're making it work. The Kohanim are doing the avoda and the tefillah. And now the whole system's back on, and now we can connect the lower crown to the higher crown. Okay, this took a lot longer than I thought it was going to take. But we'll take a break here. Any questions before we take a quick break? Or
real quickly, the
Okay.
base of Mikdash is no longer here, so let's replace that in terms of the shul. They say a shul.
You're right. So we have a base Mikdash Katan, what we're in now, right?
Yeah.
So what we have now is we have the avoda, or the chavos levavos, right? The obligations of the heart. So what we can do now is we don't have the korbanos and the base of Mikdash, and we don't have the medium world, the medium universe to connect our small universes to the big universe and to Hashem. But then the korbanos and the base of Mikdash, it's all also utilizing the structure. But what we do have is tefillah. We have prayer, and that goes all the way up. And what we have even more powerful, as we're going to get to maybe on Tisha B'Av, which I find incredibly hard to do, but tears. Tears. If we tap into this, if we get a glimpse now if we get a glimpse of the world of the emes and how we're not connected to it, and that breaks us, and we cry that we want to be reconnected to this all, and we're missing these vital components, the tears open up all the gates. Right? The gate of tears is always open. So the tears and tefillah, meaning the real heartfelt tefillah. Not just like, oh, I really wish we had the base of Mikdash. But from the bottom of someone's heart, from the bottom of their neshama, from the bottom of their soul, a deep held feeling of everything we're missing and how we're not connected. And the tears, the honest tears, like Hannah, the tears, crying, for children, crying to be a part of it. The tears open it all up. So that we don't have the base of Mikdash right now, but we have to feel it. Right? So, and if we really use it to the bottom of our heart, we can open it all back up. And that's what starts the whole process, really. Because when we were in Egypt, and there's no political solution anymore, it's not just voting for the Democrats, not just voting for the Republicans. The politics are not going to work. And when we just see that the politics are not going to work, and there's no other option, then we cry out to Hashem. That yizach, that crying out to Hashem, opening the gate of tears. The real heartfelt tefillah. When we really cry out to Hashem, the whole thing's going to open back up. And if we really utilize the tefillah, if we really cry out on Tisha B'Av, Mashiach is born on Tisha B'Av. It may not be he's really born on that day, but he's born, meaning his role begins. His kingship begins when we cry out that we want it. That's the essence, when we want it. All right, let me just pause right here and then. All right, so we're gonna start with the Maisa Bereshis. One of the most astounding ideas that you see in the Maisa Bereshis is the first day is called Yom Echad, not Yom Rishon. It's not called the first day. It's called one day, right? Day one, but it's not the first day. Everything else, second day, third day. So what's so astounding is we talked about the bays, but everything starts with the first word. I don't know if I got it correct. Hopefully I got it correctly. It should be 6 letters. Bereshis. So we have the word bara and shais, right? So there's a sefer written called the Tikuni HaZohar, right? It's written by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and he does something incredible. So there's an idea in the Torah that there's 70 facets. There's 70 facets to everything in the Torah. So every word, every pasuk, it has 70 facets to it. So what the Tikuni HaZohar did is he took the letters of Bereshis, or he took the word Bereshis, and he showed, there's 70 tikkunim, and he showed the 70 facets. Now 70 is also a big number in creation, because if we look at Jacob, when he goes down to Egypt, he goes down with 70 souls. So there's 70 key components and people that form like the root of the Jewish people, right? We saw before there's numbers like 1. One's very important. One's Hashem. There's only really 1. Even Mashiach is 2, at least 2, if not a whole line of kings. We'll see. There's around Hashem. But there's only truly 1, right? There's only Hashem. There's 3. We saw the 3, the intellectual capacities, and then things are built on the 3 avos. Starting having an Abraham, Yitzhak, and a Yaakov. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. There's a power in the 3. And then a 3, like the 3-ply cord cannot be broken. And then the 7 is the physical world. The physical world is 7, right? 7 days of the week, right? There's 6 directions, and then they're tied into the center, right? So you can have 6 directions. You can have, north, south, east, west. You can have up and down, and they're all tied into the center. And what ties everything into the center? What's the 7th? It's Shabbos, right? It's Shabbos. Okay. So he does, and then the nations, there's 70 root nations of the world. The 70, like descendants of the 3 sons of Noah. The 3 sons of Noah, Japheth, Ham, and Shem, right? All their children and their grandchildren. I forgot if it even goes to great-grandchildren, but there's 70 root nations of the world from Noah. Okay. So the one thing he does is he breaks it down into 2 words. Bara, which means creation, and shis, which in Aramaic is 6. He created 6. So what's Bereshis? He created 6. Now you can also break it down to all different ways, and he goes through all different ways you can break this word down. You see in there is hiding the word bias. Rosh, bias, the head of the house. There's just all kinds of ways that these letters can be moved around. There are all kinds of aspects of creation. But with this word, with the bays, and then definitely with this word, in the beginning, right? In the beginning. That was not the one that writes. In the beginning, or with, it could be read with the beginning. Is there two ends? I always
Two.
two ends, right? Okay. In the beginning. Now, time and space have just been created. They didn't exist before. So Hashem is not bound by time and space. Hashem, time and space are inside Hashem. Hashem's the makom. Time and space are and we're going to see as it's going to become really obvious, really quickly as we learn all this, that Hashem's outside time and space. Even the way he's teaching us the Torah, we see he's outside time. So time and space begin. So we saw there was things that were formed. We need those 7 vital components and all those spheros and all the letters, and we'll see like all the things that were created before. But all the things that were created before are necessary to then those you can't have the universe. There's no purpose, there's no goal without those 7 things. But now everything begins. Time is now the clock's ticking, literally. Everything begins, time and space are created. All right, so we're going to see this amazing Bereshis Rabbah, amazing midrash here. Let me put this up on the board here.
So you say these things are created before, they're not physical entities, or they're not before what? If you have no time, it can't be before something because before it doesn't exist.
And right, so that's one of the things I was working up to, which is so amazing.
Right.
Is what you're bringing up. So you're way ahead, and you're going to like this because we're going to start getting aspects of science in this, a lot of physics in this. But what's so amazing about Yom Echad that it's not Yom Rishon? There's no other day. When Hashem's creating the first day, all that exists is the first day. So even though this is the reshis of all of creation, even this is the rosh of the bias, and the world, the universe is the bias. The universe is the home we all live in. Now we have a place. Now we have a place to live, a place for the universe. Created 6. Everything's beginning, right? Everything's beginning. But there's only one day. There's not a second day that's been created yet. It's not Yom Rishon. It's not the first day. Because all that exists at this point is only one day. He's creating this day, right? We take days for granted, but days had to be created, right? So days had to be created. So we're going to see something really interesting here in this Bereshis Rabbah. Right, so let me see if I can get it all up on the board here. So on the first day, Hashem, he created the raw material. This is generally called, I think it's this ancient Greek word called Hiuli. I don't know what the Greeks called exactly, if they called it that but he created the raw material from which he created everything in the world. Okay, so if the physicists are correct, if the chemists are correct, so I think biology goes like a level up because the physicists are breaking everything down to the smallest particles, the elementary particles, all these like protons and neutrons and electrons. And then I think where you go up to the level of biology, then it's like the cells are built from different elements, right, of the atoms. Is that right? Very advanced, like organic chemistry, start getting into. But according to like science, everything is these very little particles. Now, I have a theory. I don't have enough proof for it yet, but I want to suggest perhaps we have these very, very little particles, and then light, which according to science is made up of little, and there's photons, little photons that go in waves. And what's a photon? A photon is a little sphere of light, little sphere of light that has energy in it. And then we have these spheres of matter. And I would suggest that maybe what they're calling all these elementary particles are the spheros. And not only is there the main structure of spheros, not only are we made up of the spheros, but inside a person itself, a person is made of trillions and trillions, or whatever the crazy number is, of these little spheros. So we know that there's these big spheres. Now, another thing we didn't discuss is these spheres, these 10 spheres, they can be in two shapes. They can be in the shape we looked at. They can be in the shape of the igulim, and that's the shape of a man. Or they can be in the shape of Yosher, upright. It stands upright. That's in the shape of the man. That's what we looked at. Or these spheres can be in the shape of igulim. They can be in the shape of spheres inside of spheres, like the layers of an onion. Right? So where you start to look at the universe, then you have Malchus, you have the earth, and then you start to have all these spheres around the earth. And then you start to get into what it's called the Requiem. And when we get to that, on day 2. So we have these massive spheres. We're made up of these spiritual spheres, and maybe even matter itself is made up of these billions, trillions of these tiny spheres. And then even our neshama is not just 10 spheres, because then we have spheres in our face that make up the face. We have 10 spheros here. Each one of these relates to the 10 spheros. We have 10 spheros down there. Each one of them relates to the 10 spheros. The world's made of spheros.
I just want to make one comment before you go on. Just a little, I wouldn't say correction about the Greeks. You said the Greeks said about all these, I'll call them building blocks, were put into the world. But what distinguishes the Greek philosophy is when they translated the Hebrew Bible into Greek, they had trouble with one word. What was the word? Create. They had no idea of something coming from nothing.
Right.
That was their hang-up. So they said, there was things there.
Yeah.
They're not concerned how they came into being. They always were there. The word create was an alien word.
I did know. It's very interesting. So that's a big part of Rambam in Mor Nevuchim.
Right.
And he's one of the few Gedolim that we have. He was trained. He went to medical school, so he was trained in the sciences. So he's one of the few we have that relates the Torah. He looks at science through the lens of the Torah. He's one of the few we have. So what he did is and what's interesting is, I don't want to get too far into physics right now, but what he clears up in the Guide for the Perplexed, Rambam, what he clears up is that he says that a lot of Aristotle's theories, he said, are very close to our Masorah. They're very close to the Torah received at Har Sinai. And one example is the motion of the planets and the stars. Aristotle attributed to what he called intelligences, right? And Rambam says that's correct, because that's what we call malachim, right? There's intelligence. There's something that's directing all these orbits. There's an intelligence. Then, I don't want to get too far into it right now. A lot to say on the subject. But people like Copernicus and Newton kind of threw out the ancient system. And in some ways, some of those ancient theories may have been closer to the truth. Now, where Aristotle was wrong, where modern science is going to win over Aristotle, is Aristotle and the ancient Greeks. And I think there may have been a few that held otherwise, but the main prevailing view was that the universe was never created, right? There's no creation. It always just existed. And Rambam shows how it can't be. Even he argues philosophically. He uses the philosophy of Aristotle to show even with his own philosophy it can't be. He showed the flaw in the logic. Now, what's crazy is, like science, when science gets too arrogant, they're always in for a big fall. Aristotle is the father of all science. He came up with the categories of science. The categories we have today are basically started by Aristotle. his one theory about the fact that the universe always existed as opposed to being created was the prevailing scientific view until I believe the 1960s, when they found Hubble and the background radiation. They found that those background microwave electromagnetic waves all throughout the universe, and then it had to have a beginning.
And also the expansion of the universe, which suggested a central core of explosion, the Big
Right.
Bang, we call it.
Right. So I don't want to get too into the theory of that right now, but it's the first time science, Western science, had to admit that there was a beginning. Right. But until there, so at least in that aspect, modern science will disagree with Aristotle. I say when you get into things like planetary orbits and gravity, Aristotle may have been closer, but well, I don't want to get too far into all that right now. Okay. But so we're going to say, but here, when we're saying Hashem created the raw material, this may not even be. We'll use a scientific term for a second. It may not even be the electrons and the protons and the neutrons yet. It's whatever spiritual material will become them. It's the raw material that will become them. So that's where we're at. So the Hiyuli, and the thing about the Hiyuli is it's a word that uses the letters of Hashem's name. Hiyuli, except for the Lamed. There's a whole deep concept of the Lamed. But the letters of Hashem's name, so the letters Yud, right, Hey, Vav, Hey, just to get it clear. And the universe was created with these letters. Right? So we saw the 10 spheros. So the tip of the Yud is Keser. The Yud is Chakma. The first Hey is Bina. The next 6, the gematria of the Vav, equals the number 6. The next 6 spheros are the Vav. And the final Hey is Malchus. And that's what we're going to see. Malchus, the final Hey of Hashem's name, is going to relate to Shabbos. And then we're going to see how you can connect the Hey, the lower Hey, to the upper Hey, and the power of Shabbos. We're going to get there. We're just beginning. We're at Bereshit right now. Let's see. Oh my gosh, we're almost out of time for today. But let's see if we can get through day 1. So what's created now is just even the raw material for what's going to be matter. Not even matter yet. So when Hashem created, but Hashem created everything on this day. Everything, but it didn't become physical yet. But everything was there. All the raw material, everything that's ever going to be, it was created on this first day. Now there's a Midrash that says, that 10 things were created on day 1. Right? So, Shemayim, right? The Aretz, the heaven, the earth, light, and then darkness. Now here's something we say every day. We say Yotzer Or, Hashem forms darkness, but Borei, Yotzer Or, he forms light, but he creates darkness. So why is he only forming light? Yetzira is a lower level of creation. Right? I didn't go through the worlds, the levels of creation, but it's a lower level creation. So why did he have to create darkness and only form light? Because if you remember the pre-structure, the cosmic computer that we talked about, what already exists before anything else existed, before Hashem created anything else, only Hashem exists. And what emanates from this infinite being is the Or Ein Sof. What's emanating from the essence of this infinite being is this infinite light. Light already existed. Now, not physical light, right? So there's a difference. There's spiritual light and there's physical light. There's spiritual darkness, there's physical darkness. And spiritual darkness, or even physical darkness, could be what the physicists are starting to explore, this concept of dark energy, dark matter, right? Darkness. Hashem created darkness. The light was already there. He only had to form the light, because he had to form the light into the uses that we can use it for. But light emanates from the Ein Sof itself. It emanates from the infinite being. So it's something that was kind of there already. Tohu, Bohu, wind, need the 4 elements, water, and then day and night. Day and night. And then day and night, they both come together and they form this thing called time. Right? Day and night form this thing of time. Everything that ever existed, right? Everything that ever was going to exist, and this is why physicists find conservation of matter, conservation of energy, that maybe these little elementary particles, they can't ever be destroyed, right? They can't ever be created, and they can change from energy to matter, right? But everything that was ever going to be needed was created on this first day.
What does it mean? Ruach Elohim al Panei ha-moyim. What is ha-moyim?
So one thing that's famous. We're running out of time today. One famous thing is there's going to be 4 great empires in the world, and they're going to be fighting us, like how like a sparring partner gets someone ready for the big fight. Like we're fighting against these 4 main empires, right? And they're going to strengthen us up to finally bring Torah to the whole world. So tohu, which is defined as like chaos, right? Meaning raw matter, the raw material. It's not even formed. There's no form yet. It's the raw thing, the raw spiritual the spiritual matter that's going to form the physical matter. Tohu, and this is described as a green line, and it could be a whole green sphere that surrounds like the whole world, right? And sometimes sailors, people out at sea, they see. I've seen incredible videos. I don't know if anyone's ever seen it, but incredible. They witness actually like the date line. They see when they're out there on the ocean when everything's flat. They can see like here it's day, and here it's night. And sailors sometimes see this green flash right there, like right at Shkia, like right at the sunset. Mm. And they may get a glimpse of the tohu. Tohu could also be the aurora borealis, the northern lights and the southern lights, and the solar radiation. Maybe that's the physical manifestation of it. This green line that goes all around the whole world. Right? It's a deep concept, but it's chaos. It's the raw material for the matter without any form. It's chaos. Now it starts to get a form. Bohu means something's now in it. So it begins, the first empire, the chaos is Babylon, Bavel. What's Bavel mean? To mix up, confuse. Right? It's chaos. Bohu. Now there's a form. There's something becoming in it. Everything's becoming a little more solidified. These are described as great stones underneath the water. That water, natural springs, that the water comes out of the stone. And we see this a lot in the Torah, the Be'er Miriam, the concept of water coming out of the rock. And the oceans are filled up, like Hashem opened these up during the Mabul, during the flood. But now things are becoming a little more solidified. Now form. You start to have form, matter. Bohu. This is related to the second of the great empire, the 4 empires. This is Persia, Media, right? The Persian Empire. Now there's form to it. The next is darkness. The next empire is Greece. That's considered darkness, right? Because even though the knowledge is so great from the Greco-Roman systems, science, but it's just missing that element of the ruchnius. Right? It's missing. It's not studying it from the Torah. It's studying it backwards. It's looking at the Maisa Breshis and trying to figure it out. But you're looking at it backwards. You're not reading instructions. You're just trying to fumble around and figure out how the thing works. So you're kind of stumbling along in the darkness. You can make great breakthroughs. You can get insight. But you're not reading the manual. You're not reading how to use it. So darkness is Greece. And then the great depth, the water, the deep, the abyss, where we go into the depths of the ocean, the light gets absorbed and it's dark. And that's Edom. And that's what we're in now. It's deep and it's long. Right? It's long. This exile's been a long time. It could be this exile is 2,025 years. It could be the Western calendar is exactly tied into the Golas Edom. Because what happened in the year 0 is the year King Herod died. And that was the last autonomous rule. From then on, his sons were really controlled by Rome. Like Rome had control. So it could be these years in the Western calendar are exactly the years of our Golas Edom. and it's deep, and it's long. But then there's the ruach, there's the wind, but the ruach's also the ruchnius, the spirituality is now hovering above Edom, and that's Mashiach, right? And that's going to be Mashiach in the Kisei Kavod, and that's going to be Mashiach when he's going to get this, he's going to break open the darkness of the deep, and the light's going to come back in. And that's the Gula. All right, so this is day one. Once again, we have 10 things related to the 10 Spiros, the essence of the whole universe, and we see the first 10 things are created. Okay, so we did day one, and then B'ezrat Hashem tomorrow we'll start on second day. Okay. Okay.
Thank you.